The evening had barely begun when I pulled into my driveway, tired from a long day at the federal office, only to see my son, Sam, slumped on the front steps, his head buried in his hands, and something in the way he looked up at me made my stomach sink like a lead weight. There was a fear in his eyes, pale, shaken, the kind I'd seen countless times in victims threatened by people wielding authority they had no right to use. My instincts sharpened instantly, a cold precision honed over 20 years of law enforcement, ready for anything. "Dad, thank God you're home," he said, rising too quickly, his hands trembling. He explained that earlier 2 men claiming to be police had come by, demanding access to Grandpa's gun safe. They wanted the combination immediately, citing some bizarre federal regulation that supposedly allowed HOA oversight of private weapons storage. Sam's voice trembled at first, rasping from the stress, but there was an edge of indignation too, because he'd known all along that something was off. The badges looked cheap, their uniforms mismatched, one man tall and gangly with a scraggly beard, the other stocky, red-faced, aggressive. The patches were crooked, the shirts ill-fitting, like a scene from a bad community theater rather than a legitimate law enforcement visit. The more Sam described, the more alarm bells rang in my head. Real federal agents don't enforce HOA rules, don't intimidate minors, and absolutely don't demand safe combinations without warrants signed by a judge. This was not just suspicious, it was criminal, calculated, and targeted. I asked every detail, knotting everything in my mind. The cheap badges, their awkward movements, their poorly timed rehearsed lines about community safety superseding individual rights. Something had gone catastrophically wrong for them to target my son while I was away. As I listened, my protective instinct mixed with the operational calm of a seasoned marshal. I could see the neighborhood watching too, Mrs. Clark peeking from her window, Mr. Rodriguez pretending to water his plants across the street but clearly straining to listen. The tension wasn't just ours anymore. It was becoming a public spectacle, a chessboard where every neighbor was a potential witness. I reassured Sam, telling him firmly that these were not real officers and that he had done exactly the right thing refusing to cooperate. Yet there was still that edge of fear, the possibility that they might return tonight better prepared, more dangerous. And return they did. The very next day, car doors slammed in our driveway, and I watched 2 men from Sam's description approach, mismatched uniforms, cheap badges, glaring with overconfidence, but every detail screamed amateur hour. I confronted them, calm, measured, and demanded legitimate credentials. They produced flimsy laminated cards and documents, spouting phrases like emergency power supersedes individual homeowner rights, which dissolved under my scrutiny. Neighbors were now fully invested, observing every movement, whispering, recording. The fake cops realized immediately that intimidation would not work here. They retreated, leaving threats behind like smoke trails. Days later, Diane Kessler, the HOA president, arrived herself in a sharp power suit and leather portfolio, presenting forged documents claiming authority over our property. I noticed immediately the signatures were fake, the seals photocopied, every line of bureaucratic theater meant to intimidate. But I knew their game. It wasn't safety, it was greed. Our corner lot had skyrocketed in value due to nearby commercial development. Every compliance inspection and community safety order was a thin veil for a property-grabbing scheme. Sam and I began preparing systematically, documenting every interaction, installing security cameras, recording every attempt at intimidation. The harassment escalated, anonymous social media posts, campus reports about Sam's supposed weapons violations, calls to his part-time employer, all designed to isolate, pressure, and terrify. Neighbors were coerced into silence, except for a few like Mr. Wilson and Mrs. Clark, who quietly supported us, becoming unexpected allies. We transformed our home office into a command center, evidence meticulously organized, timestamps, photographs, forged documents, witness accounts. Every move by the HOA and the fake cops became another piece of the puzzle, a breadcrumb leading to their criminal intent. Then came the moment of truth. On a Sunday afternoon, 4 men arrived in tactical gear from an unmarked black SUV, handcuffs and tasers visible, ready to physically enforce their fabricated authority. Sam was in the garage. They advanced, declaring his arrest for weapons code violations. My training kicked in instantly. I positioned myself between them and Sam, hands visible, ready to protect him. They moved in, thinking their numerical advantage would intimidate a single father, but I acted in precise fractions of a second. The lead fake cop reached for Sam, and I struck, an elbow to the solar plexus, dropping him before he could react. The others fell in sequence, a joint lock, a knee strike, a sweep, all controlled, non-lethal, all in 30 seconds. 4 criminals neutralized, disarmed, no serious injuries, their entire operation collapsing like a house of cards. Sam stared in awe, neighbors emerged, phones recording, mouths open, the quiet suburban street transformed into a scene of real federal justice. Diane Kessler's BMW screeched in as her carefully orchestrated property theft and intimidation scheme unraveled before her eyes. She screamed about assaulting law enforcement, only for me to reveal my badge, my real authority, Chief Deputy U.S. Marshal Jason Thompson. Silence fell. Every witness, neighbor, and even Sam processed the revelation. The quiet man they knew was a federal marshal. The one person who had been quietly observing was the one protecting them all along. Local police arrived, evidence catalogued, the fake cops taken into custody for impersonation, attempted kidnapping, fraud, conspiracy. The HOA's leadership crisis erupted immediately. New community leaders dissolved the abusive enforcement practices, property rights were restored, and the fraudulent schemes exposed. Sam, observing the professional handling of justice, realized the contrast between fabricated authority and legitimate law enforcement, absorbing lessons in tactical thinking, moral courage, and operational awareness. Over the following days, neighbors approached with newfound respect, gratitude, and recognition, understanding how our quiet presence had shielded the community from harm. The hunting rifles in our garage remained ours, legally compliant, and our family's reputation not only restored but enhanced. The sun set over the neighborhood as Sam and I sat on the porch, reflecting on how arrogance and ignorance had led the HOA president straight into the consequences of criminal behavior. "Too bad they picked the wrong neighborhood, Dad," Sam said, laughing softly. I smiled, thinking that true authority doesn't bully, it protects. And justice, when applied with precision and patience, is the most powerful lesson of all.